10 Argentine players kicked out of the Premier League, something football has never witnessed before. And now FIFA has reportedly moved to ban those same players from the 2030 World Cup. If that decision stands, it will go down as one of the biggest controversies in modern football, shaking the team that ruled the sport for the last decade and leaving millions of fans asking one question. What really happened? Depending on which side you're on, this story will either make you furious or convince you justice was finally served. But everything you've heard so far is only the beginning. Behind the headlines is a video almost nobody saw, a punch that never appeared on the main TV broadcast, and a chain of events that eventually became the centerpiece of the entire investigation. What happened next raised even more questions. Why were some incidents treated as major offenses while others received little attention? Why did some players become the face of the controversy while others stayed out of the spotlight? And how much of this was really about football, and how much was driven by political pressure surrounding one of the sport's biggest rivalries? Stay with me until the very end because we're breaking down every key moment, every important piece of evidence, and every claim that has surrounded this extraordinary case. We'll examine the footage showing Nahuel Molina's clash with Rodri in the 105th minute, the incident investigators reportedly studied in detail. We'll also look at why Leandro Paredes became the subject of multiple disciplinary allegations under FIFA regulations, what those allegations could mean, and how they fueled speculation about Argentina's future at the 2030 World Cup. We'll cover the public statements made by British political figures, the controversy surrounding Lisandro Martinez and Enzo Fernandez, and a fan-recorded video from August 3rd that challenged one of the biggest stories repeated by the media. Before you assume you already know everything that happened, give me a few minutes. The headlines focused on the post-match fight. Social media replayed the images of Paredes grabbing Eric Garcia. But almost nobody talked about a brief 15-second moment in Atlanta that many believe became the first domino to fall. That single moment would later be connected to one of the biggest football controversies in recent years. This isn't the version of events you'll find in a short news article. There are twists, unanswered questions, and overlooked details that completely change how the entire timeline fits together. So sit back, because this is a long story, and every minute brings another piece of the puzzle. Before we continue, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Nexo Futbolero so you don't miss our upcoming coverage. And let me know your opinion in the comments using just one word: guilty or victims. Right now, the football world couldn't be more divided. On July 15, 2026, Argentina defeated England 2-1 in the World Cup semi-final in Atlanta. At the final whistle, nobody on the pitch imagined that the celebration about to unfold would eventually become one of the most controversial moments of the entire tournament. The players celebrated together while thousands of fans erupted in the stands. Then, from the front rows, someone threw a white flag with bold black letters onto the field. For words were written across it: "The Malvinas are Argentine." Giovanni Lo Celso noticed it first. He walked over, picked it up, read the message, and raised it above his head. Lisandro Martinez stood beside him. Christian Romero joined from the other side. Nicolas Otamendi stepped into the frame, while Enzo Fernandez celebrated just behind them. Emiliano Dibu Martinez remained only a few meters away as the cameras captured the moment. It lasted barely 15 seconds. Just 15 seconds. Yet many believe those few seconds became the beginning of everything that followed. Within hours, television stations, newspapers, and online media across Europe were replaying the images. The celebration instantly became one of the biggest talking points after the match. According to FIFA's disciplinary regulations, sporting events cannot be used to display political messages or statements unrelated to football. Tournament organizers had already reminded every participating federation about those rules before the competition began. The banner itself had reportedly been prohibited inside the stadium. Even so, it reached the pitch from the crowd, and several Argentine players briefly held it in front of millions of viewers watching around the world. The reaction came almost immediately. Politicians, journalists, and football officials in the United Kingdom strongly criticized what had happened. Public figures demanded investigations, while others argued that players representing Premier League clubs should face consequences beyond international football. Pressure on FIFA quickly intensified. The English Football Association also called for a formal review, insisting that the governing body enforce its own regulations consistently. Suddenly, what had started as a brief celebration after a famous victory had become an international controversy. But looking back, many believe the biggest warning sign wasn't the flag itself. It was what happened next. Instead of disappearing after a day or two, the story continued growing. Every new headline brought more debate. Every television discussion raised fresh questions. What originally looked like a simple celebration was turning into something far bigger than anyone inside the Argentine camp had anticipated. And while the players prepared for the World Cup final, the spotlight surrounding them only became brighter. 4 days later, the stage was set for the biggest match in world football. Spain and Argentina walked onto the pitch at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, with the World Cup trophy just 90 minutes away. Millions of fans watched around the globe, expecting a historic final between two of the tournament's strongest teams. From the opening whistle, Spain controlled possession and dictated the tempo. Argentina struggled to create chances and spent long stretches defending deep inside their own half. Despite their efforts, they failed to register a single shot on target throughout normal time. Emiliano Dibu Martinez kept Argentina alive with one remarkable save after another, denying Spain on several occasions and preventing the scoreline from getting away. As the pressure continued to build, emotions inside the Argentine squad became increasingly visible. In the 82nd minute, Enzo Fernandez received a yellow card after protesting a decision made by the referee. With the match still locked at 0-0 deep into stoppage time, Fernandez arrived late into a challenge on Pau Cubarsí. The referee immediately reached for a second yellow card, followed by a red. Argentina were reduced to 10 men just moments before extra time began, becoming the first team to lose a player in a World Cup final since 2010. Spain quickly made the numerical advantage count. In the 105th minute, Pedro Porro delivered a dangerous cross from the right. Nico Williams directed the ball toward the far post, where Ferran Torres connected with a first-time finish that found the back of the net. Spain led 1-0, and the stadium erupted as they moved within touching distance of becoming world champions. But according to the claims made in this story, the biggest controversy didn't happen during the match itself. It began only after the goal. As Spanish players rushed to celebrate, Rodri ran across part of the pitch to join his teammates. On his way, he passed close to Nahuel Molina. A secondary broadcast angle reportedly captured what the main television feed failed to show. Molina appeared to strike Rodri in the chest as he ran by. Rodri stopped instantly, turned around, and confronted him. Within seconds, Eric Garcia stepped in. Players from both teams rushed toward the scene, and the situation escalated rapidly. Leandro Paredes entered the confrontation and grabbed Eric Garcia around the neck. Gavi became involved moments later. Thiago Almada joined the pushing. Nicolas Otamendi refused Rodri's handshake, and the confrontation spread across the field as players and staff surrounded one another. Roberto Ayala, a legendary Argentine defender now serving on Lionel Scaloni's coaching staff, was also accused of striking Dani Olmo during the chaos. By the time order was finally restored, the referee had already begun issuing disciplinary sanctions, with Paredes shown a red card after the final whistle. What seemed like a heated post-match confrontation would soon become the foundation of one of the most controversial disciplinary investigations in recent World Cup history. What happened over the next few days changed everything. At first, many people believed the incident would end the same way similar controversies had ended before, with fines, a few suspensions, and then football moving on. But this time the investigation kept growing. Every new video angle, every referee's report, and every witness statement added another layer to the case. Before long, what had started as a chaotic 5-minute confrontation had become one of the biggest disciplinary files FIFA had ever assembled involving a single national team. For Argentina, this wasn't the first time questions had been raised about players' behavior during a major tournament. Back at the 2022 World Cup, Leandro Paredes sparked controversy after kicking the ball toward the Dutch bench during the quarterfinal against the Netherlands. FIFA reviewed the incident, but the punishment stopped at a financial penalty for the Argentine Federation, with no lengthy individual suspensions. After the final against France, More complaints regarding celebrations and post-match conduct resulted in another fine. Yet once again, no player received a major individual sanction. The pattern appeared to continue in 2026. Following Argentina's victory over Egypt earlier in the tournament, videos emerged showing several players singing songs in the dressing room that sparked fresh criticism. England lodged another official complaint, but after reviewing the case, FIFA closed the investigation without handing out individual punishments. To many observers, that decision looked like the end of the matter. But according to this version of events, it would later become one of the most important turning points in the entire story. The argument is simple. When players repeatedly see investigations end without significant consequences, they may begin believing the boundaries will never truly be enforced. 3 tournaments, multiple investigations, several controversies, yet no serious individual suspensions. Whether that perception was right or wrong, supporters of this theory believe it created a false sense of security inside the squad. Then came the World Cup final, and everything changed in a matter of minutes. This time, investigators reportedly had multiple camera angles, official match reports, and intense international attention focused on every incident. The atmosphere surrounding the case was completely different. Public pressure continued to grow, debates filled television studios across Europe, and discussions about possible sanctions became impossible to ignore. What had once been treated as isolated moments of poor discipline was now being examined as part of a much larger pattern. By the end of July, the disciplinary investigation had become the biggest topic surrounding Argentine football. Every day brought new reports, fresh speculation, and more questions about what FIFA's final decision would be. Fans waited anxiously while players, clubs, and officials all prepared for a ruling that many believed could reshape Argentina's future for years to come. The dominoes had been falling one after another, but almost nobody realized how close they were to the final piece collapsing. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. On July 29, 2026, FIFA's disciplinary committee reportedly completed its investigation and released the findings that immediately sent shockwaves through the football world. The document was said to contain multiple allegations against several Argentine players and members of the coaching staff, making it one of the largest disciplinary cases ever linked to a single national team after a World Cup. According to the report, Leandro Paredes faced 3 separate allegations of aggressive conduct under Article 14 of FIFA's disciplinary code. Nahuel Molina was reportedly accused of 2 aggressive incidents along with 1 count of unsporting behavior. Roberto Ayala also faced an allegation related to aggressive conduct, while Thiago Almada was included for alleged unsporting behavior. At the same time, the Argentine Football Association itself was reportedly investigated under several different articles of the disciplinary regulations, with officials examining both the actions of individual players and the responsibility of the federation. As pressure continued to build from outside football, discussions about possible punishments became even more intense. Reports claimed that British officials, together with representatives from the English Football Association, continued calling for FIFA to apply the strongest sanctions available under its disciplinary rules. Around the world, fans argued over whether the governing body would make an example of Argentina or simply hand out the standard suspensions seen in previous tournaments. Then the reports became even more dramatic. According to the claims circulating at the time, several Argentine players were said to be facing consequences that could stretch far beyond a handful of international matches. Stories spread suggesting bans affecting future World Cup participation and even the status of Premier League players representing English clubs. Whether those reports reflected the final legal outcome or not, they dominated headlines and created enormous uncertainty around the careers of some of Argentina's biggest stars. Names such as Emiliano Dibu Martinez, Enzo Fernandez, Lisandro Martinez, Nahuel Molina, and Leandro Paredes suddenly became the center of worldwide debate. These weren't veterans nearing retirement. They represented the core of Argentina's present and the foundation of its future. Most would still be in their prime by the time the 2030 World Cup arrived. That is exactly why the possibility of long-term sanctions stunned supporters across the globe. It wasn't simply about missing a few matches. It was about the possibility that an entire generation of Argentine talent could see its World Cup dream disappear because of a few emotional minutes after one heartbreaking defeat. For many fans, that possibility was the hardest part to accept. They believed the controversy wasn't about footballing ability or performances on the pitch. It was about losing control in the emotional aftermath of the biggest match of their lives. In just a few chaotic moments after the final whistle, actions taken in frustration were now being discussed as decisions that could define careers, reshape Argentina's national team, and leave a lasting mark on World Cup history. Just when it seemed the investigation had reached its conclusion, another piece of evidence suddenly changed the conversation. On August 3rd, an Argentine supporter uploaded a video recorded from the front rows during the semifinal in Atlanta. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary fan recording, something that would normally disappear into social media without attracting much attention. But this clip was different. It captured the exact moment the controversial flag entered the field. The footage clearly showed the banner being thrown from the stands before landing on the pitch. Seconds later, Giovanni Lo Celso walked toward it, stopped, read the words printed across the fabric, and lifted it into the air. According to those defending the Argentine players, the video challenged one of the biggest claims repeated throughout the investigation, that the demonstration had been carefully planned in advance by the team itself. The recording suggested the flag came entirely from the crowd rather than from anyone connected with the Argentine delegation. Supporters argued that while the video did not automatically erase questions about whether the players should have displayed the banner, it weakened the idea that the incident had been prearranged. At the same time, another question continued to divide football fans. Reports suggested that players from Spain were also being reviewed over incidents that occurred after the final whistle. Yet many supporters believed the attention surrounding those cases was nowhere near the level directed toward Argentina. That comparison became another major talking point, with fans asking whether similar incidents were being judged by the same standards. The debate quickly moved beyond individual tackles, confrontations, and disciplinary articles. It became a wider discussion about consistency, fairness, and whether football's governing bodies apply the same rules equally in every situation. One side insisted the evidence justified strong punishment. The other argued that politics, media pressure, and public opinion had influenced the outcome far more than the actual incidents on the pitch. By now, the story had grown far beyond one match or one tournament. It had become a global argument about where football ends and everything else begins. As the dust slowly began to settle, one question refused to disappear. Were these punishments based purely on the rules of football, or had outside pressure influenced the final outcome? That debate became the center of discussion across television studios, newspapers, podcasts, and social media. Supporters on one side argued that FIFA had simply enforced its own disciplinary code. Others believed the governing body had acted only after political figures, football officials, and media outlets demanded stronger action. Many pointed to previous cases as a comparison. In 2012, South Korean footballer Park Jong-woo received a suspension after displaying a political message following an Olympic football match. FIFA had already established that political demonstrations on the pitch could result in disciplinary action. For those defending the investigation, that precedent showed the rules had existed for years. For critics, however, the question wasn't whether rules existed. It was whether they were being enforced consistently every time. That is where the controversy became even more complicated. Some observers argued that similar incidents involving other national teams had resulted in lighter sanctions, while others insisted every disciplinary case depends on its own facts and evidence. The disagreement was no longer about a single tackle, a single flag, or a single confrontation. It had become a debate over consistency, transparency, and whether football's biggest governing bodies apply the same standards to every nation regardless of its influence or political circumstances. Whatever opinion people held, one fact remained undeniable. The controversy had already left a lasting mark on Argentine football. Players who had spent years building their reputations now found themselves linked to one of the sport's biggest disciplinary investigations. Every interview, every press conference, and every international match would be viewed through the shadow of what happened during those unforgettable days in Atlanta and New Jersey. For young footballers watching around the world, the story also carried another lesson. Every action on the pitch, and sometimes even after the final whistle, can have consequences far beyond 90 minutes of football. In the modern era, where every angle is recorded and every moment is shared across the world within seconds, emotions that last only a few moments can shape careers for years. Whether history eventually remembers these events as a necessary example of discipline or as one of football's most controversial rulings will depend on how future generations judge the evidence. But one thing is certain. This case sparked conversations that reached far beyond football itself, raising difficult questions about fairness, accountability, and the balance between enforcing rules and responding to public pressure. Now the attention turns to what happens next. Appeals, legal arguments, and official decisions could still change the story in the months ahead. Until every process is complete, the debate is unlikely to end. And regardless of the final outcome, this controversy has already secured its place among the most talked about chapters in modern football history. If you enjoyed this breakdown and found details you hadn't heard anywhere else, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Nexo Futbolero, and turn on notifications so you never miss future updates. Share this video with other football fans and let them decide for themselves. Was this a fair application of the rules, or one of the most controversial disciplinary cases the game has ever seen? Let me know your opinion in the comments. This is Nexo Futbolero, where football isn't just reported, it's brought to life.